Okay. Thank you everyone for coming to the May 15th weekly working group serving meeting. And we have a couple of items in the agenda today. First one is from me. I just want to mention that we had a meeting with the K-Serve team this Monday, and it went really well, and we had very fruitful discussions. And we did see some common challenges that can be solved at a larger direction. So maybe one action item is Clayton, is this your, do you know if this is the same meeting that you are about to discuss?
It is. It would be a follow-up, I think. So this was like,
Okay.
we kind of had a topic teed up, which I'll talk about in a minute, but this would be a follow-up.
Okay. Yeah, so we talked about a lot of good stuff. Feel free to check out the meeting notes and recording linked here. And yeah. Clayton?
And I was actually going to ask on that one,
Mhm.
when we think about pulling out use cases, maybe we should have like spend a little bit of time, maybe before next week working group serving, going and kind of trying to draft a common use cases doc to
Yep.
expand or replace the current one. I know we've got the work going on with DRA. I need to take some of the ones that I've suggested for DRA and that Sergey has suggested for DRA and bring them in. So maybe that's something that I'll sync with you and Sergey on to how we get how do we collect use cases and then share them so that everybody has a chance to see which ones they're interested in.
Yeah, sounds good. We can start summarizing the one we had with Kserve, and in the future we can easily expand based on that after discussing with other ecosystem projects. By the way, those meetings need to be arranged too in the future, but I guess we are all tied up at this point, so we can wait a little bit and maybe sync up individually first.
And one thing that I felt too was, I think I want to be really sensitive to the Kserve and working group serving ecosystem overlap. So it might actually be valuable for us to kind of write out, a working group serving Kserve alignment blurb, and maybe through the orchestration work stream, where we say, we're focused on this to support, and we think Kserve owns this, and we want to complement Kserve with this, just as a way of avoiding the kind of ambiguous. Well, isn't what is what working group serving that Kserve isn't? I find it's easier to align first than to wait for blowups and confusion to emerge from others who might be looking at this and not have the same level of perspective we do.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And we also have like a serving working group in Kubeflow community that's been there for many years. Now that Kserve is kind of like a graduated project from Kubeflow and also a standalone project in so we may need to think about that a little bit more carefully.
Yep, and I definitely think of Kserve as a platform, but I don't think that's the only way you can think of Kserve. It certainly provides a lot of opinions that make a lot of sense. And I think one of the things we've said is we want to focus on primitives. What does that actually mean in practice? And this is a great place where we can have that discussion. So then, so next, tomorrow I sent out an invite on the autoscaling work stream. We had a big general discussion, and then we wanted to try having a specific topic that's been brought up by several people, which would be warm replicas and pooling as a way of amortizing the startup time. Obviously, the longer your startup time, the less inclined you are to autoscale, and GPUs and loading large models into model servers is one of the longest and slowest operations I'm aware of, other than like rebuilding your file system when you have FSOC errors or downloading, restoring a backup of a database. But unlike either of those two cases, the normal path for a big, large model serving workload is to require all of this time at startup. So we to see kind of how this would go, I wanted to we're going to spend 30 minutes. We'll talk about worm replicas. We'll talk about pooling. We'll maybe generate some other topics and use this as an experiment in finding whether there's unique value here that we can bring and find maybe some consensus that could potentially either lead to CAP or lead to further investigation. So that'll be the next autoscaling workstream meeting. And then I think I'd like to tee up one for next week as well, but I don't have a topic yet. So maybe this is also a call for topics for next week. Okay, that's it.
Could you also record the meeting as well?
Yes, and I think just in general, we as a group record all our meetings, and I'll note one thing that I found is with Sergey being sick, we need to think about how the work streams can get their meetings set up. I was just using standard Google invites, and I know that we have the Zoom meeting, so maybe that'll sync with. We should make sure that work stream leads can set up meetings correctly, and we're using a consistent thing so people can find it and do the recording. So thank you for that.
Yeah, one thing Sergey and I talked about is we have two separate Zoom meeting links. One is for this regular meeting, one is for ad hoc meetings. So you'll probably want to use the ad hoc meeting link. I can share that with you later if you don't have it yet. Yeah, that way it will be recorded to the cloud, so it's easier. Okay, next.
Eduardo, I didn't know if you had a question.
No, yeah, I was going to point the same on. You can ping me, as I said that I was going to help you in the auto-scaling work stream, so I can create the Zoom link if needed.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, done with this one. Go ahead, Kaishin. You have a question?
Okay, yeah. My question is that I'm not sure is this only my question or not, but honestly, I cannot receive the work stream invitation. I think right. So I think maybe we should find a way to add it, or I'm not sure is this only my question or not. Yeah, but I'm in the serving working group, Google group, but I cannot receive the invitation. Yeah, I'm not sure. Is there is all the people can receive the invitation? I can see the Wednesday meeting on my calendar, but I cannot see the our orchestration work stream invitation that's in the Monday.
Can I ask what's your email provider?
I think my email provider is Gmail. And
oh, that's weird. Yeah, because I was going to say I'm signed into the Google group with a Microsoft account and also a Google account, and I do Clayton emails. I only see them in my Gmail account, and I somehow my Microsoft account send some of the working group emails directly to the trash. So I don't know what that's happening with Microsoft.
I don't know if there's any support, but I would assume that this is a solved problem for other groups, or maybe it's just been a long time. We should definitely write down what the correct process is for scheduling meetings that works for everybody when we debug this, because that was effectively what I was thinking, is I didn't even know what the correct process was, and I couldn't find anything in the Cube ecosystem that laid out do this to minimize all the problems.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I'll check with the group to see if there's any formal process around it. Okay, but if not, we can add you to that invite individually. If anyone else is having the same issue, let Clayton know so that he can also add you into the invite.
I think that I check with you that on CNCF, I think you say that I have already on the event, but I still cannot receive it.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe I will give you maybe my personal email to try again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next. Ronald, you wanna talk about the DRA use case?
Oh, no, I just mentioned that we are collecting the use cases in a table. We can just add whatever is gathered from this group to that master table.
Okay. This is cool. Do you wanna go over it, or do you just wanna keep it as a reference here?
No, this is just a reference. I just want to share
Okay.
the link here. Yeah.
And I'll add, timing wise, we probably want to get all the ones that we know of that are super important for us in. We're running out of 1 through 1. The weeks go by so fast, it seems. And so maybe we should actually do a smaller working session, or just try to find some time where we all commit to reviewing the list and look at what we know. I have a couple of complex examples written up of, like, you know, these really complicated scenarios, but they're not boiled down into, like, you know, we want to do this with this and the justification for why. So that could be I think, like, the use cases in DRA are good. I think one of the things would be helping John and Tim and Kevin prioritize. And if we see things that we really disagree with, or maybe not disagree with is the right word, but if we think that those are too complex, I think one of our roles is to suggest simplifications. Like, I was talking to Jeremy Olmsted Thompson, who's in SIG multi-cluster. He does a lot of stuff with you know, compute and all that in GKE, and he was definitely saying this is a really broad KEP. If we want to succeed, you know, there's some advantages to being even more specific. And then we were kind of postulating, you know, if I was a workload author, do I really want to go set up these really complicated flows? And, you know, I have my own biases, having worked on Kubernetes for so long, but I do think having bias is important for users. You know, we should bias towards, is this the simplest possible thing that you would actually want to use most of the time? So I don't have a concrete action there other than, you know, Mernal, how do you think that it would be useful for us to actually go do a longer session where we try to bring distinct use cases or work through?
Yeah, I think so. I think, like, what's happening right now, so John has this prototype and he has all the examples of different pod YAMLs for all these use cases. And Kevin and Patrick are writing their versions for their extension of the current as an alternative. So maybe going through that by this group and then making sure that we are not missing any use cases there, and adding to that list will be useful. And I agree, like, having a meeting with John, Kevin, and Patrick to go over that will be useful. And also, I agree with you. We are kind of running out of time on what we want to do in 131. So it will be good to nail down some use cases. Yeah.
Juan?
Oh, sorry, I'm on mute.
Yeah,
I
so
was checking whether Jiaxin is on mute. Yeah, okay. Jiaxin, you wanna go ahead and talk about this one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think in last meeting we have an action item, and so we suggest to have a separate work stream to talk about multi-node, multi-host, and I draft some proposals. I mean the topics, propose the topics, and like to share with the community, and see anyone have the similar like issues. Or if yeah, this is just also an opportunity to collect more like topics to discuss in this work stream. I think if we can find enough topics, we will schedule a meeting next week to go through the challenge listed there. I just like to get some feedbacks. Yeah, I can briefly talk about those like these 3 items. The first one is the multi-node inference implementations. I think a lot of users, I think right now start to deploy very large models, and I do notice there's a lot of like 100 B models like public their ways. So in that case, we need more like 800 or some. I know some users only have like 840 GB. So multi-node inference becomes the mandatory like setup for hosting those models. And besides that challenge, and there's a different like orchestration solutions. For example, like people using like VLM using Ray and like DeepSpeed, TensorRT, they use MPI. And we are also looking for like cloud native solutions. Yeah, the second item is in the I think the original use case, like Clayton shared, some users like to host a model using different chips. That means in some of the scenarios, the results are pretty like I think the demand are high, but there's not exact the same chips to use for single service. So they can tolerate performance or heterogeneous setups to leverage more like chips to host the models to get a target scale. So how to manage such cases? Do we like to use the multi-deployment or something can hide the resource difference underneath? That would be another like topic. Yeah, the third one I think is related to the last week's discussion with Kai Xun from Anyscale. Like TPU have different like GPU setups, and some of the like data centers, they have the topology where like setups. So deploying multi-node inference requires some coordination with those like this device discovery or the network like topology aware scheduling. So that's another important thing for the distributed inference. And in latest research areas, people like to decouple the prefill and the decoding phase into separate like workers. So that need like high performance network between the workers. So that's a required thing on the scheduling as well. So we list these three topics as a start to discuss the multi-host like work stream. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
This is a great list. Just regarding the second one, just to clarify, this is not like a distributed inference. You're referring to multiple replicas of the same model, but different replicas are being served on different, hardware depending on traffic patterns, right?
Right. That's true. Yeah.
Okay. Not the same replica being, for example, distributed between two different types of hardware.
Yeah, that's kind of a just leverage multi-host, but not run single inference service across multi-host. Yeah.
Right, but I think it's important to clarify terminology. When we say multi-host, I feel that we should refer to a single replica, like running one server distributed across multiple hosts. And if we're saying that it is, for example, we have multiple replicas running on different types of hardware, that is, I think we should come up with a different term for that, just to make sure we're speaking the same language here, right?
Sounds good. Yeah. Yeah, we can find a better term for such cases. Yeah.
I'm supported. I'm +1 to actually starting this work stream. If you have like a time set to discuss in more detail, that would be great.
Yeah, maybe Jashin, it would be a good idea to check with the folks who are interested to see if the time works for most of them.
Sounds good. Yeah, I will send a message to the working group channel and collect the times. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. Okay, next, Dirash, you want to talk about model registry?
Yeah, so we just want to start a conversation about integrating model registry. So what we have in the server so far, is a backend and a client that you can use the APIs of the model registry server to register models. But we would like to start integrating it with other Kubeflow components to do things like automatically serve the models and so on. Basically, we're starting with like a question. What's the right way to go about this? Is this work group the right place to start this conversation about it, or should we go to like the individual components like kserve and start the integration conversation there? The reason I ask is, we could take like a couple of different approaches, right? We could architecturally, and without going into too much into the implementation details, we could have a common metadata across different serving methods or serving components that is common and defined using a sort of generic model in the model registry service, and then the individual components pick that up and do the automatic deployment from models in the registry. Or we could have it the other way, where the serving components like kserve, for example, do the actual deployment, but then they push the metadata, the information about where the model is being served, into the model registry, right? So depending upon which approach we think we want to take, where the model registry is used sort of as a repository where you store information about the model to be served, and then kick off that process, that workflow from the model registry, or do we want to do it the other way around, where components are just pushing metadata into the model registry? So at a high level, we need to make sort of this decision for serving, and we were wondering whether should start this at the work group level, or should we go to kserve and start this conversation there? And what would be the best way to do this? Should we create like a issue somewhere to start this conversation, and have the community provide their input, their ideas?
So I think this is actually a really important discussion principle that we should, like, it gets to charter and scope and the stuff that we were talking about before about like, what's the role of Kubernetes? What's the role of the higher layers? What about shared primitives across? So like queue, for instance, in working group batch define the concept of a queue, but that queue is not, the queue is a Kubernetes API, but it is not a required component of every Kubernetes cluster. I think when we talk about like model registries, model as a primitive is not a part of Kubernetes today, but it is a part of kserve. Would model as a primitive be something that multiple ecosystem serving components be interested in? I think so. I think it's, there's like the infrastructure primitives of how you get very large artifacts to nodes. One of them is container images, and everything else is on the domain of what happens in the container. Except we have volume mounts, and there's very good volume reasons for volume mounts to be modeled because there's distributed file systems. And I think there's a gray area between container images and what happens in the container, where if there's an advantage for there being a way for the workload to declaratively say that it's going to load a model, modeling that through Kube could lead to performance benefits, right? Conversely, putting it in Kube means its dynamism is harder. So, right, like the dynamism described by a model registry, if it doesn't need to happen in sync with the model server deployment, then maybe that's an argument for it's probably more appropriate for a higher level than Kubernetes. So I think this is kind of like a scope problem. I would probably say it'd be great to understand whether what are the other options besides model registries, and to look at, I think this working group could say like containers, URLs, distributed file systems, and client code are all ways that large models make it to nodes, and we have some optimized paths for a few of those, and the others are harder. What are the common elements that everyone would need would be the kinds of things that we would pull out. And I don't know that, at least like at first pass, I wouldn't say, I don't know that everyone would expect this model registry to integrate into Cube. But for instance, if you wanted to do a volume mount or something like that, I think that'd be a very interesting discussion. And then if we as a group sponsor primitives, like model server, or sorry, inference workload CRDs that could be shared by multiple components in the ecosystem, I would expect input to that, in partnership with Kserve and Selden and Kaito, et cetera. I think that would be like a good topic. So all of those seem within scope. And I unfortunately have to drop, but I'd love to catch up with the notes afterward.
Thank you, Clayton.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So have we talked about using like OCI artifacts as a way to expose these models into containers? Like that's
Right.
more general than
yeah, that's a good question. The approach that we have taken in Kubeflow model registry is that the Kubeflow model registry is a service. It's got its own REST API, and it models metadata related to ML models, right? We have a model artifact object, a resource defined in the API, in the REST API. Basically, right now it just stores a URI. So it doesn't really care about the actual nature of the storage, underlying storage. It's left up to the producer and the consumer to decide how to interpret that URI. So the URI could be like a volume, or it could be pointing to an S3 bucket, or it could be pointing to an OCI registry, right? The model registry itself doesn't really care because it doesn't directly interact or do anything with the storage service, right? So we have kind of separated, decoupled storing the model versus storing the metadata about the model. Does that make sense?
Yep, thanks.
Yeah, so because it's also kind of this decoupled model or decoupled design, that's why we felt it was better to start at the workgroup level and try and define some way of basically going the next step of going from this model artifact to how do we kick off serving this model using different serving components in Kubeflow. So again, I'm trying to avoid going into the implementation and design details right now. We just need guidance about how would the work group like us to proceed on this. Is there a place where we can create an issue, a PR, or something where we can start a discussion? Do we need to put a proposal together that the community can provide input into?
Yeah, I would suggest like putting together something to kick off the discussion. Maybe share it in the Slack channel to see if anyone else is also interested. I see that Andre is also raising hand. Andre.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Andre from Kubeflow community. Yeah, so I think what Clayton said is actually correct. Like the question is like, what is the role of this working group and what this working group is doing compared to what other components are doing on their side. So like I think we discussed about it a little bit with the Bachelor group as well. Like, and the point is maybe Kubernetes working group should be responsible for the infrastructure layers, right? Providing just the building blocks for like other high-level components to consume, whether it is Kserve, Kaito, training operator, or anything else, right? In terms of model registry, I think the question is like how to, because during the years there's been always like discussion if we can unify the ML metadata, the metadata about the models, metadata about the training, right, the artifacts and other points, right, and how we make it common across all the
come up with some
frameworks.
common definition.
Yeah, it's always like the problem, but I think if Kubernetes community can help us to unify it, and if we can dictate it for other frameworks, that would be great from my perspective.
Yeah, agreed. So is there a place in does the work group have a repository where we can put these proposals together and start this conversation?
You can post a topic.
Yeah.
You can post a mail to the group, right? The Google group. That's one way. I'm not sure if we have a repo already where we are collecting issues. Maybe Yuan or
We
something.
don't have a repo. Yeah, but you can put your item in the agenda. So this is like a weekly meeting. So you can, before each meeting, you can add any discussion items here. And also you can arrange like dedicated focus meeting if you want with the working group members, if anyone else is also interested. Yeah, I would say like Slack is a good way for communications within this
Okay.
group.
All right. Yeah, I was wondering if there was like a formal process that we had to follow to bring something to the group.
Yeah, and there's also the Google Groups, right? If you want to send like a email to the mailing list instead of
Okay.
using Slack, you can do that too.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. So I was thinking, we'll put a presentation together and some document where we can continue this conversation.
Sounds good.
Great.
I just have a good question. Sorry, like maybe this group knows. Did you have any conversation in this working group about around the metadata discussions, or we haven't got a chance to discuss? Because, like, as I said before, this was like a hot topic in the community for the last like couple of years, but we've never come up with some like common solutions because it's kind of the lineage across all the stages of ML lifecycle, from data prep to training to tuning to model serving, right? But my question is like, do you have any conversation during the serving or discussions about metadata or lineage?
No,
I
we
haven't heard
yet.
of anything yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's a more like a life cycle work, the model life cycle, end-to-end metadata collection. That's a little bit different. The closest concept is metrics in this space, but not not something similar to like ML or metadata. I haven't heard of any discussions within this group yet. Okay, anything else on this topic?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Dirash. Okay, Ed.
Yeah, I just want to be quick. I'm happy that we already discussed about a new work stream. So if you check that Kubernetes Slack, basically Clayton was asking to the entire community if we want to kick off a new working stream. Right now we have 3. So we have the auto-scaling working group, the orchestration working stream, and the multi-host, which I guess is also multi-node, or is multi-host and multi-node going to be different working streams? I assume it would be just one, right? Yeah.
Jashin or Abdullah, do you know?
Yeah, I think based on what I understand, if we have requirements from different scenarios, we can easily distinguish the cases and users. That's worth to split the work stream. But for the next one, probably we can like participate in one work stream. So let's see the primary like use cases. What's the primary use cases, and then we can determine like, whether we like to split it or not. What do you think?
Yeah, would it like what's the difference between multi-host and multi-node? Is multi-host more the intention of like multi-cluster?
No. I think it's the same. Like host node is the GKE term. Host is for anybody else who doesn't use Kubernetes. Sorry, the Kubernetes term. Node is the Kubernetes term. Host is for everyone else who doesn't use Kubernetes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In last meeting, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, in my mind, like host and node as synonyms, basically here.
Okay, that's good. So yeah, we are down to 3 work streams. If anyone in this meeting thinks that their need or use case doesn't fit into orchestration, auto-scaling, or multi-host, please let us know. We want to represent everyone and have the required focus group to tackle everything. So yeah, it's more like a call to action for everyone. That's why I said it at last. It's like a non-priority topic.
I was assuming, Jianxi, you like with the meeting that you're trying to arrange is gonna kickstart this workstream, right?
Yes.
I remember, Ed, you were asking like where we should put all these work streams. How do we organize it? Do you know, or anyone else know what's the best practice there? Should we put them under our charter or?
Yeah, they are now under the charter. So I did an addition to the README, so it's now there.
Okay.
But yeah, right now only the auto scaling has a link. Once we officially has a link to the Google Doc, right? So once we officially kick off the other two work streams, we should update that with the proper links.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, I found it here.
Hey. Thanks. Anything else? Okay, that's it for today then. Thank you everyone for coming. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thanks.
You.